Indeed, China solidified its status as the manufacturing powerhouse of the world, accounting for 28.4% of global manufacturing output in 2023. Nonetheless, India's manufacturing sector's global market share as of 2023 remains a pitiful 3.3%. India and China have a significant economic relationship, as seen by the commerce between the two nations. In the fiscal year 2022-2023, China accounted for a sizable 13.79% of India's total imports, showing the country's reliance on Chinese commodities. Yet, India is now emerging as a significant player in the manufacturing sector, owing to its sizable domestic market, assertive government policies, and a rapidly growing population that, let's be honest, might fill a small planet. The billion-dollar question is this: can India overcome China in manufacturing? Other than lower wages, there isn't much evidence to support India's claim that it can provide manufacturers with better possibilities than China, despite its best efforts. And who wouldn't enjoy a nice deal? India might develop in some areas, but persuading numerous businesses to relocate their well-established manufacturing operations from China will be difficult. We'll look at some reasons why India might not be able to match China's industrial might in this video. Consider this for a moment before we begin the chapters. Do you think India has a genuine opportunity to surpass China in manufacturing? Let us know with some facts. Dear China leads the world in manufacturing, a position it cemented when multinational companies poured into the country after it joined the World Trade Organization, or WTO, in 2001. However, several factors have prompted enterprises to scour for an auxiliary manufacturing hub. Concerns have been voiced about China's rising labor costs and the government's pressure to transfer technology to domestic rivals. This hunt for an alternative has also been sparked by the previous President Donald Trump's tariffs on Chinese imports in 2018, the COVID lockdowns starting in 2020, and the present Western government's push to decouple their economy from China. Many nations have entered the race to become the +1 location for manufacturing, with Malaysia, Vietnam, Thailand, and Mexico leading the pack. For businesses, labor costs are a critical factor in decision-making. Over the past 2 decades, labor costs have notably increased in China, with annual growth rates ranging from 10% to 15%. China's provincial-level minimum wages currently span from approximately $140 to $346 per month. States in India have different minimum wages. They range from roughly $66 to $202, and India is now more appealing as a low-cost manufacturing option. This is especially beneficial for importers who deal with labor-intensive goods like textiles and clothing, as the move to India offers significant cost reductions. Geopolitical pressures have brought Apple's connection with China, its main iPhone production location, under closer scrutiny. In retaliation, the tech giant is planning to relocate a quarter of its iPhone manufacturing within the next 2 to 3 years to India. This translates to a staggering 50 million iPhones rolling off production lines in India annually. For India, the influx of Apple's production translates to significant job creation and economic growth, bolstering the country's manufacturing sector. But why is India not a global manufacturing hub? Let's look at a few of these factors. Compared to India, where most people live in cities and at a high population density, China has a lot more area available for manufacturing expansion. With few legal restrictions on mining, China is another mining hotspot. For example, China generates considerable value from the trade and use of its natural resources, producing over half of the world's silicon and 63% of the world's output of rare earth metals. In addition, there is a sizable home market in China for Chinese goods. For instance, of the $560 billion produced in garments, only $160 billion is exported, meaning that 75% of the output is used locally. This is also the case for other industries, including the automotive one. One clear advantage China has over many other nations, including India, is this high degree of domestic consumption. China is like a super-fast locomotive when it comes to moving goods around, whereas India is more like an ancient rickety wagon. In actuality, China is ranked 26th in the world for logistics expertise, while India comes in at 44th. Despite the vast network of roads in India, many of them are uneven and unpaved. In India, about 2% of the roads are 4 lanes or larger. In China, this number is 11%. A 2022 World Bank research states that moving expenses in India account for 13% of the nation's GDP, compared to 8% in China and 7% in developed economies. The average speed of trucks in India is also significantly lower than global standards. Plus, there aren't enough contemporary, well-equipped warehouses in India. Only 2% of GDP is allocated to warehousing space, compared to 11% in industrialized nations and 5% in China. This has a major impact on the estimated 25 to 30% agricultural yield losses. On top of that, the Indian logistics industry lacks digitalization and automation in areas like data-driven optimization, real-time tracking, and automated warehousing. Just 10% of Indian logistics companies have incorporated cutting-edge technologies like automation and artificial intelligence, per a McKinsey & Company report from 2023. This dependence on manual procedures results in cost increases and inefficiencies. China's business-friendly regulations and incentives for manufacturers are partially responsible for the country's dominance in manufacturing. The Chinese government has put in place solid, consistent policies that promote investment, make land acquisition easier, and give important businesses tax benefits and subsidies. Trying to navigate India's regulatory maze is like competing in an extreme sport, the bureaucratic obstacle course from hell. Obtaining licenses and approvals? That's just the warm-up. The main event is land acquisition, where industrialists and locals engage in a never-ending tug-of-war over compensation and rehabilitation. By the time they reach an agreement, the investors might as well just purchase a plot on the moon. Although crucial for sustainability, India's environmental laws have occasionally come under fire for being unduly strict and causing delays in projects. Comparatively, China has been more lenient in its approach, prioritizing industrial growth over environmental concerns, at least in the initial phases of its manufacturing boom. India may have a massive labor force, second only to China, but when it comes to skills and human capital, it's like trying to run a high-tech factory with a bunch of cavemen. While India has a ton of people of working age, not many of them actually work. Only 51% of Indians between 15 and 64 are employed, while in China, 76% are part of the labor force. To achieve the same labor force size as China by 2030, India would need to achieve a participation rate of over 70%. And it gets worse. India has one of the biggest gender disparities in the workforce, meaning that women there are more likely to be stay-at-home mothers than career women. In China, 71% of women work, compared to just 25% of Indian women. Even poorer countries like Pakistan, 26%, and Bangladesh, 40%, have more working women than India, according to the Oxford Economics Report. Developing nations in the region that have a smaller economy also have a higher number of female workers in their labor force. More than 50% of women in Indonesia, Malaysia, Laos, Thailand, and Vietnam are working. Even if recent moves, such as Apple's plan to move some iPhone manufacturers to India, may seem encouraging, India still has a long way to go before surpassing China in the manufacturing sector. The impression that the government has limitless resources that it may freely disperse is fostered by the overabundance of left-leaning parties. Any political party that tries to implement any kind of reform that could lead to industrialization and prosperity faces intense opposition and loses votes. The governments of China are allowed to implement any laws they think fit. China has many advantages over India that it will be challenging for India to match in the near future, including highly developed infrastructure, a labor force with advanced skills, business-friendly laws, and deep integration into global supply networks. India's industrial sector may keep expanding, but overtaking China in terms of manufacturing strength is still a lofty long-term objective. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more thought-provoking content.